All right, so clearly we're getting right into it. Dana here with us.
Hi.
Good to see you. Let me just add one other part here, guys. So Rachael Ostovich fight was postponed due to Saturday. She was assaulted by her husband. She's since spoken to Hardy, told him she has no negative feelings toward him, and that she hopes she can turn a bad situation into a good one. So, Dana, want to ask you this. Obviously, Ariel bringing up two things. Hardy's like newness to the sport, essentially being a novice, why you chose him for this card, and then the checkered past.
Half the roster is new to the UFC. I mean, we go out and find the best up-and-coming fighters on the planet every day and bring them into the UFC. So that's normal.
Yeah.
And I made a decision to sign him. They're both on the roster. They're going to end up on a card sometime. And if that's the type of, person that you are, that you want to bring things like, you can make something out of anything if you want to. So it doesn't matter whether they're fighting now on this card or 10 cards from now, they're on the same card. This is what would be brought up. Why do they even have to be on the same card? Why do they have to? Because they're both in the UFC, and that's the way it worked out.
I'm having fun with you with this one because, I mean, my thing was your reaction to Ariel. I mean, I was like, my goodness, oh, my goodness.
I think everybody knows I'm not a fan anyway. I'm not a fan, number one. And number two, that's the type of guy he is. He's the type of guy that finds something in everything. It's always negative. This guy paid his dues. He lost everything. He's been building himself up for the last 5 years. He's done everything a human being is supposed to do.
Right.
And here he is.
In fairness, Ariel, and it's not really about him. What I'm saying is usually we live, and Molly can speak to this, unfortunately, or some would say fortunately, we're living in a day and time right now where it's not really about what he feels as a commentator. It's in terms of the optics you're looking at society and how judgmental folks can be towards a guy with that past. You might feel differently. I might feel differently. We all might feel differently, but there are a lot of people out there that would ask the question that he posed.
Well, then tune in and watch him get knocked out if that's the way you feel about it. I mean, the guy deserves to make a living. He's paid his dues. And listen, when I make a decision that this is what I'm going to do, other people's opinions don't matter to me.
Dana, I think that you just defended the decision rationally and well. In other words, philosophically, it comes down to, does that specific transgression, especially with a victim of domestic violence on the same card and a debut on ESPN and all those things, does that specific transgression in a combat sport disqualify him, at least at first, for participation or permanently from participation? If you say, no, look, it's going to happen anyway, that's a perfectly rational response. But why go at Helwani, who brought up the idea of tone deafness? In other words,
I didn't go at him. I just said his opinion doesn't matter to me. I don't care what he thinks. His opinion means nothing to me. I made this decision, and this is what I'm going to do. Whether he what do I care whether he likes it?
But as a member of the Fourth Estate, as they say, do you think that's a reasonable thing for him to bring up tone deafness, which you can then respond to and say, look, I understand why you might say it's tone deaf. Here's why we made the decision.
No, I mean, but the thing is, I've been dealing with this guy for a long time. This is what he does. This is his style of whatever you want to call it. He always tries to find something. If you want to find...
And in defense of Ariel, though, I asked the question. So I was the one who brought it up and said, what did you think of having a perpetrator and a victim on the same card? So he didn't just solicit. I want you to know that I asked
But it's not about whether you asked the question or not. It's his response to it. He responded. You didn't respond. You just asked him a question.
Well, let me go.
And my opinion is I don't care what his opinion is.
Okay, well.
So he has
his
his opinion.
Which is a perfectly
my opinion
reasonable
is I could care less what his opinion is.
All right, well, I got something else to bring up that he mentioned.
Come on.
He talked about the flyweight division.
Okay.
And he said that basically this fight with Henry Cejudo, I mean, he's going up against TJ Dillashaw, and essentially the flyweight division is on the line because, again, if Cejudo loses, you might not see that division even in existence. Speak to that at all in terms of how important this fight is to the future of that division at the 125-pound.
Well, everybody's been asking me that question.
Okay.
We're going to see what happens on Saturday. What happens on Saturday, I'll go from there. It's like when people ask me, what if this guy beats this guy? What will you do with that guy after? I have no idea what I'm going to do. We're going to see what happens on Saturday. We'll see how this fight plays out. You have champion versus champion. Two of the greatest fighters on the planet are going to face off. 125, 135. Whoever wins, I'll go from there.
Hey, are you cool with Dillashaw moving down? I mean, everybody's talking about he walks around in the 150s. He's talking about fighting at 145 eventually, but he's going down to 125 first, and he made weight and whatever. Any concerns about that at all?
It's madness, but I respect it so much. For him, he cuts down to 135 pounds. He cut another 10 pounds to fight Cejudo.
Right.
It's like a Conor McGregor move, just hop into wherever the fight is.
Then
right?
he's talking about moving to 45 to take on Max Holloway, who is a killer and much bigger than him.
So whether or not it's
I respect it.
Whether or not it's smart for him as a fighter, as the promoter, you got to love a guy with a fighting spirit.
Exactly.
Because he's giving the fans what they want.
And you have a guy that wants to fight everybody, and not just everybody. He wants to fight the best of the best.
I want to get back to the idea of press coverage of combat sports especially. It seems to me that there's negative coverage of all kinds of sports, and that's the press's job, to be critical, not just to, sing the praises of whatever they cover. That's the new journalism, which started a couple generations ago already. It's not just like Babe Ruth, gee, he's the greatest. It's like really tell the stories. It's more interesting. It's even better to sell the sport. But I do notice that in boxing especially, there is more critical, cynical coverage. Like, there's a sense that if you cover it critically and cynically, you're hard-bitten in doing your job. And if you're excited and psyched about it, you're being naive.
And you get more attention. The negativity gets more attention than the positivity does. And these guys, especially in this internet social media age, these guys realized real quick, the more negative I am, the more, the more play I get. Exactly.
I like